Hey guys, PJ Williams here from the Last American Pubcast and Wartime Propaganda. I just want to give you guys a quick intro to this video. We're going to interview Ryan D. Kelley for governor of Michigan. The primaries are coming up August 2nd, so please go out and vote. And I hope this video helps you decide on who to vote for in Michigan. And if you're not a Michigander, please go out and vote in your state's primaries. It's very important in the midterms this year. I just want to do this video really quick, or this intro really quick, because as content creators, we're putting out a lot of content a day. We're constantly busy, and sometimes something gets messed up. We don't realize it till it's a little too late. The interview was fantastic, and when I went back to listen to and edit and cut clips out of it, I noticed that during the interview, my microphone was not actually picking up my audio, but the webcam over here was, so it sounds pretty bad on my end. But I hope you guys enjoy the interview. Just please ignore the poor audio quality coming from me, and forgive me for this little bit of mistake here. Still super great interview. A lot you can learn from this guy. A lot. I think that even if you're not a Michigander, you can learn from this interview. So please enjoy our interview with Ryan D. Kelley for governor in Michigan. All right. Well, we have a very special guest for you guys today on the Last American Pubcast. With us today, we have Ryan D. Kelley, who's running for governor in Michigan. Ryan, welcome onto the podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Beautiful day here in Michigan. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to join you and join the audience here that's watching. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. And we're getting real close to the primary here. Hope everybody's ready to go vote Ryan Kelley on August 2nd.
Yeah, August 2nd is the primary here in Michigan. Very close, like you said. I've been following you pretty early on, I think right from your first announcement. I actually think I found you on TikTok, of all places. But I've been very excited to get the chance to talk to you. I think we met briefly last year at, was it the May 5th thing? Was that when it was the Capitol, like the anti-vax mandate stuff?
I don't remember which event was on.
You've been to a lot of events.
Lots of events, but that was.
I heard you speak then, and so I just wanted to ask you, I kind of want to get some of the tough questions out of the way and then get into some of your policies really quick. Because one of the things that, a lot of people have noticed is that on January 27th, you were arrested on misdemeanor charges related to January 6th, and what I would say is one of the most well-timed political hit jobs I've ever seen. This was 18 months after after January 6th, and the morning that the show trials were set to begin. So the first thing I just want to ask you is, how are you and your family doing after all that?
So just to clarify that real quick, June 9th.
June 9th. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I just wanted to make sure we had the right information there on that one. That's all good. But you got the second part right. Yeah, it was relation.
I think I just typed it wrong in my notes. Yeah,
it's all good. Yeah, it's all good. To answer your question in a nutshell, we're doing well. We've learned a lot from that scenario. It's really empowered our souls more with stronger fight, because we realize the lengths that they're going to weaponize these agencies, to criminalize anybody that stands up against their leftist agenda. And, my wife has become stronger from this. My microphone's got a lot louder from this across the nation. The support has been overwhelming, tremendous, and we've got name ID through the roof. And I think that might have been enough to have me win the primary and then go on to defeat Gretchen Whitmer. So in a nutshell, we're doing well. It's not easy. But fighting for freedom isn't free.
Right, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think it did help with the name recognition, and hopefully that'll help you out in the primaries. So I was at a family reunion last weekend, and I was asking I've got a pretty politically involved family, or a politically interested family at least. And I was asking each one of them, what they would ask you if they had the chance. And I got a lot of different responses, but one of the questions that kind of stood out above the rest, and I thought I want to give you a chance to speak on it, was that because of that, what would happen if you won the primary? I guess the question people were asking is, if you won the primary, would they try to weaponize the FBI, the system, to come against you to stop you from stepping into the governor's office come November?
They've already tried it, and that's what the arrest was all about. And that's a common question, and I think part of you mentioned like a well-timed political hit job. There was definitely no coincidence in the timing there. I started doing really, really well in the polls. All of a sudden they realized that, wow, Ryan Kelley has a ton of support. Okay, we have to go after this guy. What they're aiming to do is create, this is a term that I just learned the other day when I was over in Wayne County meeting with a lady. She said her husband said, Ryan Kelley's my guy, because they're trying to create FUD around that guy. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that's what that was all about there, to try to intimidate me, create fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Dana Nessel, our radical extremist attorney general in the state of Michigan, and I have the video on my phone here. Maybe we can find the clip at some point and share with your audience. That she even said that, we can't keep Ryan off the ballot. And if he were to get elected, even if he's incarcerated, we would have a hard time getting him out of office. That's Dana Nessel that said that. They're going to try to weaponize whatever they can to keep somebody like Whitmer in power. They're going to try to do everything that they can to discredit anybody that, pushes back against their agenda. But in the long run, here's the thing is that, it's a bunch of nonsense. And we're going to fight this 100% because we know it's a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of BS. And they know that nominee Kelley equals one-term Whitmer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like that term FUD. I don't think I've heard that one before. But it really, to me, it was a signal that of all the candidates, they're afraid of you the most, is what I took away from it. And to me, that is a ringing endorsement in a lot of ways. So one of the questions, so we have another a panelist. He's not able to be here today. He's working right now. And he wanted me to ask you that if you win, will you govern as a reactionary defender or go on a proactive offense for the people of Michigan?
I think that question could be wrapped up by the actions that I have been taking from the very start of this. Not from the very start of government overreach. It's been going on for since before I was born. But this whole COVID thing that's happened over these last couple of years, from the very beginning of that, I was very publicly being proactive, pushing back against all of the government overreach and making sure our voices were heard, that we're going to fight for freedom. And I've continued to do that all throughout, the election of 2020 was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, through my gubernatorial run. You mentioned in the beginning there, the May 5th event that we were at, if it was a vaccine or whatever it was, whenever that happened, I'm there standing with the people fighting, being proactive to, make sure that, we're not going to allow our state to go in this downward spiral. The Mackinac Policy Conference is another example. I turned down being in front of the TV cameras and in front of big donors because they were requiring vaccine identification cards, requiring COVID tests to be proven negative. But they segregated all the governor candidates and treated them like second-class citizens. I said, no, we're not going to get treated like second-class citizens. We're not showing our vaccine ID cards. We're not going to even have those in the state of Michigan. So long answer there, but just talking about a couple of actions. That's the important part. Is somebody fighting by their actions or are they fighting by their words? I have been fighting by my actions. It's time that Republicans go on offense. It's time that us that love this country, love our republic, go on offense. Somebody walked up to me the other day. They said, Ryan, I like you because you fight like a Democrat. You're unapologetic. You're not afraid to say what you think and put it out there. And you're not afraid to be, vocal about all of your beliefs and fight for what you believe in. And Democrats are really good at that. And their ideas are ridiculous, and there's no common sense in most of them, but they fight for them with everything they got. It's time for us America First conservatives to step up and do the same thing unapologetically.
Mr. Kelley, one of the things you said is protecting Americans and fighting for Americans. One of the biggest issues that have arisen for governors across the country, and one race in particular happened in Virginia back in 2021 with Glenn Youngkin running to protect parents' rights with students in schools. And we saw that type of legislation also kind of take place here in the state of Florida, where the Democrats went on the attack against the parental right bill here in the state of Florida, Don't Say Gay bill, where it simply just added that teachers shouldn't have the ability to sit there and talk to any type of sexuality with small children, third grade and below. I think it should actually be a little bit more, maybe all of elementary school, but I digress. Is there something that you have in plan or in mind that you would help urge the state houses there in Michigan to adopt something similar to that in the state of Michigan?
Absolutely. That is a critical component of making sure that our schools are safe. Our schools they should be there to provide education such as academics, reading, writing, math, arithmetic, simple stuff that's going to help them excel, financial literacy, American constitutional civics, understanding what our rights are and how our country's set up, and limited, the government being limited by our Constitution. So absolutely, getting all of this nonsense out of our schools is important. And here's a great comparison. If you look at the workplace, imagine if you go to the workplace and you start talking to some of your coworkers about some of these radical sexual ideologies that are being pushed on our kids in school. You're going to get fired. There could be sexual harassment charges. So you can't do it in the workplace with grown adults, but you can do it in schools with our children. Doesn't make any sense at all. Absolutely, we're going to push for legislation like that here in the state of Michigan and get all of that nonsense out of our schools.
Absolutely. So what are some of your other plans for the school system? I know, if I'm correct, you stand for the money kind of following the kids where they go. So for things like private schooling, things like that. So I just want to give you a chance to explain that, because I feel like, at least for me, and I know it's the same for you, you said you're homeschooling all 6 of your children. I don't trust my kids in the public school at all anymore. I'd like to see it reformed, but I'd also like to see other options for parents like myself.
Can encourage people to visit my website, which is Ryan D. Kelley, KELLEY.com, RyanDKelley.com. And you can take a look at my 100-day plan that's on there. We've laid out the first 100 days, the things that my administration will focus on right off the bat to make sure that we're going the other direction with our state and not allowing these leftist destructive policies to continue in our state. But specifically with education, what you're talking about is the Supreme Court ruling. It was the federal Supreme Court ruling in the state of Maine, allowing state dollars to be used for religious education. That's a really big deal. Here in the state of Michigan, I would like to see the legislature bring me some sort of legislation. We have to work it out because there's details there that have to be worked out, allowing the money to be invested in the student, the money to follow the student. Parents can choose where that dollar gets spent, whether it's, like you said, private schools, whether it's a Christian school or some form of religious school, or if they want to use it for homeschooling. The legislation needs to include that you don't have the government, sniffing around these dollars, following it, trying to push more of these radical racial and gender ideologies and providing subpar education, which is why we want the dollars to follow the student. So parents have the options to find that best school for their children to have a prosperous future.
Awesome. I like that. So you mentioned your first 100-day plan. I would highly recommend anybody listening to this, go check out RyanDKelley.com, read the first 100-day plan. I actually think it's fantastic. But one of the questions that I had about your first day in office is that Michigan's government is bloated, full of useless bureaucracy. And some of the things that we hear from people is their day one hires. But what we want to know is, who are some of your day one fires? Who's losing their job when you become governor?
Well, I guess we'll give them a little bit of a heads up here. So first of all, the director of Health and Human Services will be gone on day one. The director of Michigan Department of Corrections will be gone on day one. The director of Natural Resources, Department of Natural Resources, the DNR, will be gone on day one. The list probably continues from there. We see a lot of these bureaucrats that have either overstepped their constitutional authority. They've kind of become this power dictator to promulgate rules and regulations that have controlled the people and aspects of infringing upon their God-given rights that are aimed to be protected by the Constitution. Or like with the Department of Natural Resources, we are grossly mismanaging our natural resources here in the state of Michigan. I think that needs to be addressed in an aspect of best utilizing and drawing the Pure Michigan campaigns, looking at having antler point restrictions on our deers so that we can look at having bigger bucks. And I mean, we're covered in 50% forest here in the state of Michigan. Why would we not be utilizing that to draw people to our state for hunting? Hunting is a huge sport, obviously, that people find other places to go because we don't have the big bucks around here like we once did. Right. So there's some things that could change there. We have the Great Lakes. I mean, there's so many amazing things in Michigan to really make sure we're best utilizing all of these natural resources and protecting these natural resources. I think a lot of things with the left is they point the finger to us conservatives and say, oh, you want to destroy the environment. You want to, whether it's oil or natural gas or, on down the line, if it's not in alignment with their Green New Deal, think that we want to destroy the planet. We're conservatives. We want to conserve the planet. I'm a huge outdoorsman. I love the outdoors. Yes, we want to keep the Great Lakes amazing. Yes, we want our forests to be amazing. I want to plant more trees. I want to see more trees out there and utilize our land better. And so really, those things in the state of Michigan here need some big changes. And so we get rid of the wrong people, we get the right ones in there, and we maximize our potential here in the Great Lakes state.
Yeah, I think conservatives for a long time have been mischaracterized, and not that we're conservationists and we don't care about the environment because we don't want to sign on to the ridiculous World Economic Forum style plans. Total mischaracterization of us. But you said the word conservative a few times there, and it actually brings up an important question. I think that I don't think a lot of people actually ask this. I've seen a lot of people in the last year or two, especially the last 4 years, really, that label themselves conservative. They put that in their Instagram handle or their Twitter handle or whatever like that. But I'm not sure that a lot of people even have a clear definition of what that means or what it means to them. So I would like to ask you, what does conservatism mean to you?
There's been a big shift, I guess, in people either becoming conservatives or labeling themselves as conservatives. And again, it is a label as well.
Sure.
And, at the core of everything, I'm a red-blooded American that loves this country, that loves freedom and everything that comes along with it. To me, a conservative is someone that wants to conserve the foundation of our country. What type of government did you give us? Asked to Ben Franklin. A republic, if you can keep it. We have to conserve the republic here in America, here in the state of Michigan, upholding our Constitution, family values, being able to, have strong views on how to create strong communities, to create strong states that cherish the God-given individual freedoms that we have. Those are some of the big components of conservatism that I see is making sure that we keep this country. You mentioned the World Economic Forum, globalism. You look at communist China that's trying to be imperialistic to bring their communist government around the globe. To me, conservatism means opposing all of that and wanting to keep American constitutional sovereignty, remain our own country. So there's other components that can go along with it there as well. But to me, that's a big component of why I'm a conservative.
Speaking of China and their aggression across our country, where they've gone into states and bought up millions of acres of land, what would you do as far as governor to help deter foreign entities coming into the state of Michigan and buying up vast wealth of farmland in your state?
I would absolutely sign legislation that would ban these communist governments from owning land in America. These governments in their own countries, they own everything. That's what communism is, right? The private ownership of land is something that we cherish here in the United States of America. And really, land ownership is the very basis of freedom. If you don't own land, like where does that, and that's why I'm against property taxes as well. And I would like to see us in the state of Michigan be able to eliminate our homesteaded property taxes so that if you buy your house, you own your house. We start there. I'd love to see them all gone at one day, but would love to start with those homesteaded property taxes, but would absolutely sign legislation saying that, these foreign interests are not able to purchase land here in the United States of America. Or I guess it would be Michigan, but I'd like to see that everywhere, right? But in Michigan, to keep the Chinese Communist government from owning our state, because what that does is that just pushes more towards the economic forum. Now we see, the current governor here, she's welcoming the World Economic Forum into the state of Michigan to make it a hub, to make it a headquarters. These people are not going to like me. They're not going to want me to win by any means. This is going to be a very, very tough battle. But if we can communicate it effectively, what's at stake here, we will win hands down, because I'm going to tell you, most people, when they know what's going on, they don't want to have anything to do with it. We give up our sovereignty, we'll be controlled by a global government that will oppress us in ways that we can't even imagine.
So you're saying you don't want to eat the bugs, live in the pods, own nothing, and be happy?
There you go. And here, this is a great part to insert this. Here's what's happening in our society at a philosophical level. Mm-hmm. We have been based on a freedom society since our founding, the individual rights and freedoms of the people. Now we're shifting and this has happened over the last couple of years especially, we're shifting to a government will provide safety and security, tell us when we can leave our houses, tell us if we should wear masks or not, when we should get a vaccine, when we should get boosted, when we are allowed to go in what places, how many people can gather at a place at certain times, because they're going to keep us safe. We're going to move from a freedom-based society. You can have freedom when the government gives you that privilege, right? Which is not how America's set up, to that safety and security mindset. We cannot allow this to happen in America. If we lose this war, this battle that's being fought, freedom will be extinct for future generations. And I'm not going to stand on the sidelines with my 6 children, the grandchildren I have, all of your kids as well, grandchildren we're going to have. We have to fight and get this right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually trying to look up that quote really quick. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Those who give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. In the end, will get neither." I think that's exactly right. One of the things that you said a minute ago was about getting rid of the homestead tax. Is that correct?
Yes.
So one of the things that we've seen other states do, I think Florida and Texas would be along this, would be, maybe I'm wrong on Florida, but getting rid of the personal income tax. And we've seen states like that not only get rid of a bunch of unnecessary taxes, but actually end up with surpluses. In the state of Michigan, we were told by Whitmer that she would, quote, fix the damn roads. But that on top of increasing our gas taxes, we were also told that legalizing marijuana would bring huge tax dollars into our state. And last year in 2021, Michigan brought in $1.1 billion in tax revenue, yet our roads are as bad as they've ever been. And now we're seeing stories come out like this one that says Michigan deputies are answering non-urgent calls by phone because of soaring gas prices. So one of the quotes from this article is, "We have exhausted what funds were budgeted for fuel with several months to go before the budget reset." That was from the sheriff. So we're not seeing Whitmer's plan to continue to tax us into oblivion working for our state. So what's your plans for that?
Zero basis budget, first of all. When we look at these departments, we see so much wasteful spending. I'm going to give you an example real quick. I was speaking with some gentlemen that were in the National Guard. They are in the National Guard. And they were telling me that at the end of last year, they had pallets and pallets of ammunition. And they were going to move the ammunition back into the storage, but they were told that if we don't use that ammunition, we're not going to be able to have that allocated in our budget for next year. So they had to go and fire off all those rounds. Now, I'm all about training. I'm all about making sure that we have the resources we need to properly train, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the military. But if we're just wasting all of that because we have to use it or we don't get the money again next year, how inefficient is that? That's just one example of the many, many departments that operate in that same capacity.
Yeah, that's called a spendex in the National Guard. I've been a part. I was in the National Guard in Michigan for 6 years, and that's exactly what we do. It would be if you didn't fire off all these rounds, and most of the time it wasn't even in training scenarios. It was just, we've got to dump this ammo. Sunlight's we're losing sunlight, so just start firing rounds down range in totally wasteful way, and we didn't spend enough time actually training, but just dumping ammo and taxpayer dollars down the range.
And now apply that same thing to the Department of Education. Apply it to Department of Health and Human Services. Apply it to on down the line of all of our different departments where they just spend the money so that they can get that much, at least plus more allocated next year. If we do a zero basis budget and tell me what you need in those departments in order to operate, give me a budget. I don't care what we spent last year. What do you need this year in order to operate? We start working that way. I think we'll find very quickly billions of dollars being just shed right off the budget, because that wasteful spending is not going to be able to just move right into the next year. When the current governor took office 4 years ago, the budget was $54 billion plus a little bit more, just under $55 billion. We're at $75 billion now. The question is how much better off are you to raise $5 billion at least every single year? We're spending tens of billions of dollars more. The roads are still a disaster. Our public schools, they're losing students. The enrollment in our schools is down. So that zero basis budget is an important component, I believe. The personal income tax that in other states has been cut. I look at the property taxes for a couple of ways. When you look at the personal income tax, which to be clear, I'm against, as many taxes as possible, including that one. But that is directly connected to how well people are doing.
Right.
The better off someone's doing, the more success they have, the more money that the government would collect off that particular tax. When it comes to property taxes, as the market continues to rise, as wages continue to kind of stay where they're at, property taxes will continue to go up and up and up. And like elderly, for example, maybe they're on a fixed income, their property taxes continue to rise. They're not able to pay the property tax differences. It's more money out of their pocket. Some lose their homes. You never truly own your home. Nowhere around the country has removed those taxes 100%. Some have them much lower than other places. But they're not connected to how well people are doing. It's just kind of like one of those, pay up or lose your house. You make the decision, and it gives the government zero incentive to make it so that people are doing well in life. The personal income tax, the better off people are doing, the more successful businesses are, the more successful people are to be making more money, the more money the government's going to collect. Ultimately, I'd like to see that come through a point of sale tax, the sales tax done in that capacity. I'd like to see us with our Department of Motor Vehicle, right? The Secretary of State, lower the amount of taxes that we have for vehicle registration. There's a guy that talked to me the other day. He's got a motor coach. It costs $700 to register it in the state of Michigan, $50 in Florida. Jeez, where do you think he registered
it? Florida.
Yeah, not here. I think my grandpa bought his farm back in the day for like $5,000. He probably pays more in property taxes just to continue to rent his farm that he owns from the government than he bought it for back in 1950 or whatever.
Exactly.
Mr. Kelley, Michigan used to be known as a manufacturer state where, some of our great manufacturing companies came out of. And we've since over the decades have seen, manufacturing leave the state of Michigan and leave, cities like Detroit, in ruin in sense with taking these jobs and taking them elsewhere. What can you and your administration do to make Michigan a more business friendly state and to attract more manufacturing jobs back to that state to provide jobs for, people who are out of work in that state?
Great question. First thing that we need to address with that is energy. We see now in the state of Michigan that there's rolling blackouts that are going to be coming to a city near you. There's not enough electricity for us to continue to run our air conditioners throughout the summer in a lot of places. That came from the COO of DTE Energy. But we're closing down nuclear power plants in the state of Michigan. Consumers Energy wants to shut down all coal powered plants by 2025. That's not good, right? That's a terrible direction for us to go. The current governor is trying to shut down Line 5, which moves a lot of petroleum products and other products, across our entire state. We have to keep Line 5 open. We have to build the tunnel under the straits and keep those petroleum products moving. Look at drilling more Michigan-based oil, creating more natural gas. We have a lot of natural gas in the state of Michigan, natural gas power plants. Keeping coal power plants open is something I would be in support of. We don't have to build more, but I am a strong advocate of nuclear energy and becoming an agreement state here in Michigan, taking control of our nuclear energy program and building a robust nuclear energy grid, I think is important if we want to provide abundant, reliable, inexpensive, and clean electricity, not only to residents, but to what you're talking about now with manufacturers and how to attract them to our state. First of all, you got to be able to provide manufacturers with electricity to operate if you want them to come here in the first place. Ford moved one of their plants down to Tennessee because we didn't have the energy grid that they needed. That happened just here recently. Now, let's look at a couple of other components because, I'm all about making sure that we're attracting businesses. And the question is what type of businesses are we attracting? We see the corporate welfare dollars to the tune of hundreds of millions go to companies like GM and Ford, and we collect that corporate income tax from a lot of smaller businesses, and we give it to these big businesses. And that has to stop in our state. I believe that we should eliminate, at least cut in half the corporate income tax, incentivize these smaller and mid-sized businesses to come here to create these jobs. Because you talked about leaving the city of Detroit in ruins.
Mm-hmm.
Those were based off these three big companies. We put all of our eggs in these three baskets, if you will. And then when they left, what happened? All the jobs left with them. Imagine if you had 10 or 12 different companies that were smaller and a little smaller in scale, doing manufacturing here based in Michigan. If one of them moves, you still have a lot of others that are providing jobs here. You're not losing all at once. And trying to incentivize those companies to move here with lower taxes, less regulations, provided them with electricity that will be able to help their operations continue to function without rolling blackouts or anything like that. Those are a couple of things that I think I would be very apt to try to identify those type of companies and give them great deals to move here to the state of Michigan and set up base and have their operations here.
It's nice to hear somebody actually talk about nuclear power plants as one of the cleanest, safest, most green energies. I know a lot of people are afraid to say that, but it's absolutely true. These people who want to create more and more and more windmills don't realize that it takes more energy to create a windmill than it will ever produce in its lifetime. So it's good to talk to somebody that's actually looking at nuclear. I know we're getting up on a half hour now, and you're a very busy man. So I'd like to give you just a chance to give us some final thought for the primaries. What would you like people to know about you to help them make the decision on Tuesday, August 2nd?
If you want to know who's going to fight for you the hardest, look at the one that they're trying to silence the most. Hands down, that's Ryan Kelley. Hands down, that I'm the one that they feel is the biggest threat that could take Whitmer out of office. They're throwing everything that they can at me to try to discredit me and create FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the mind of voters. Recently, we saw a election day results posted showing that there was a projected winner. That was meant to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the mind of voters as well. We cannot give up on our country. We cannot stop the fight for freedom. We must go out there and vote. We must continue to be, no matter how much they try to demoralize us and to take away as much of our fight as they can, we cannot allow that to happen. We must get stronger. America is land of the free, home of the brave. I've been on this path since February 1st of 2021. I've raised the least amount of money of all the candidates because I've been focused on inspiring, engaging, and activating voters all over the state. Yes, campaigns do need money to operate, so we have done fundraising, but that hasn't been our focus. The focus has been getting people activated and engaged, and it's working. It's working very, very well. Not bought and paid for by special interests like some of these other candidates that are. And that's why they don't want me there in office, because I'm here to represent the people. I'm here to make the changes that we all want to have made in Michigan and across America to make sure we're protecting those freedoms for the next generation. So, take all of that in mind when you go August 2nd here to cast your vote, or if you're doing absentee ballots, don't do that unless you have to, right? But if you are, make sure you're voting Ryan Kelley for Michigan's next governor. Let's get Whitmer out of office, and let's put these America First values first so we can make sure we're protecting freedoms for the next generations.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan Kelley, for coming on. I just want to say I'm excited to go out and vote Ryan Kelley this Tuesday, August 2nd. I hope you guys do as well. And it was great getting to talk to you. I hope that after you defeat Tudor Dixon, you can come back on this show and we can talk about defeating Gretchen Whitmer and getting her out of Michigan.
Sounds great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.